back and they said that they just simply don't feel safe eating outside in DC restaurants when you have protesters going around and almost accosting them, getting right into their faces. I know social change is at the forefront right now. Do you think this is the right way to do this?
No.
What should be the right way?
What should be the right way?
What should be the appropriate way in your mind to protesters should be acting? Do you think they should be going up to people just trying to dine out in our restaurants?
I don't.
Do you have any comment about this?
What I saw, and I don't have any comment on your Insta poll, but what I saw in those videos was highly inappropriate. It was likely against the law if they were on private property. But more importantly, I don't think it had anything to do with demands for social justice.
What do you think it had to do with?
I have no idea.
Will there be any enforcement if this thing continues?
There should be enforcement anytime the law is broken, and we would encourage any diner or restaurant to call the police immediately.
Okay. I guess with everything going on right now, do you think there's another way for protesters to go around instead of approaching these diners like this?
I think I've answered that question. Next question.
Yeah, Mayor. I'm just interested in whatever you have to say to us about progress of the march that's going to be happening in 2 days, and will you be speaking at the march?
I will not be speaking, and I don't think we have anything to add from what we talked about on Monday, Sam. The march logistics, I think, have been made available publicly. We expect activities in a seated area in front of the Lincoln Memorial on Friday morning, and we expect a procession from the Lincoln to the Martin Luther King Memorial, which is, just over a block away, to occur. And we would just continue to remind people, if you're not part of that seated venue in front of the Lincoln Memorial, then you don't really know if you're going to be in a socially distanced environment. So I would remind our residents of that. Tom?
Just on a follow-up before I ask my other question, would we expect maybe the chief will give us a briefing maybe Thursday on the status for Friday? Is that possible?
If we have a status change, but we've briefed out on the road closures. We'll continue. I think Director Rodriguez will be providing some press briefings leading up to Friday, largely around road closures, or if something has changed about our posture.
Thank you. I'd like to go back to the school's chancellor, maybe the deputy mayor. You're going to keep track of students logging in the morning and throughout the day as they complete assignments or participate. But absenteeism has been an issue in the public school system. Are you doing anything special now to make certain that you keep track of students who are not logging in or participating throughout the day?
So we'll continue to operate from our truancy procedures should students not be present and be actively engaged. In this posture, more importantly, it is critical that we continue to reach out to families should a student not log in and immediately try to understand and get more information around a particular absence. We also have provided a number of opportunities for students to take courses on a flexible schedule. So our high schools, for example, are offering twilight classes in the evenings, and our opportunity academies also offer flexible schedules. And so the goal is to find out from the family what the reasons are behind a particular absence, and if there's a need to adjust for the family or the student accordingly, do so. And if there are technology needs, be responsive to that as well. And we will continue to monitor attendance on a daily basis and follow up with families accordingly.
Thank you very much. If I could follow it up on this. You're trying as much as you can get hardware out to all the students who will need it for the classes, but there are dead zones within the District of Columbia. Is there anything you're doing to try to boost reception of the internet around town with temporary towers or anything like that?
We haven't heard any challenges with the hotspot or the internet services that we provided to students, but we are, again, in constant conversations with our students, and I've asked them to flag any challenges with logging into our learning platforms or any challenges with internet access.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just to follow up on that, obviously it's one thing to have the tools at your disposal, but in terms of being computer literate, knowing how to use it, are you confident that the district has enough resources to help those parents who have those day-to-day issues when it comes to troubleshooting, things like that? How is that going to work?
So we bolstered and built out our family technology. So there are hotlines families can call, and there's also a number of videos of how to do various tasks and to log in accordingly. And we've had tremendous participation in our family sessions via our parent university, which is an opportunity for families to ask us direct questions about how to, and we provided that feedback accordingly, and seen thousands of families get answers to their questions. So we feel confident that we've provided that information to date, and we'll continue to engage with our families as we approach Monday and beyond.
Yes.
Dr. has two questions. Delaware being on the quarantine list, the Mayor Rehoboth thought it a little bit of bad time to push back on the fact that they said it was a data anomaly. You just talk about why Delaware remains on the list, and then secondly, CDC guidelines regarding 14-day quarantines and whether that change impacts any local decisions you might make there.
Yeah, so a request from Delaware to review whether or not they should be on the list. As we understand their methodology and the reasoning behind their request, so we'll make a decision if appropriate. The CDC has made some updates to their testing recommendations. It does not impact quarantine. So I think people should be very clear about that. The testing was never a replacement for quarantine. So as there may be a recommendation that people who had close contact under the CDC recommendations, which has not yet impacted what we're doing in the district, may suggest that people who have close contact don't necessarily need to be tested unless you fall under certain categories, has no impact yet on whether or not people who have close contact should quarantine, because testing has never been a replacement for quarantine. Hope that helps.
A question about enrollment. You mentioned enrollment declines. Some of that, as you guys talked about, is because families may not know they need to re-enroll. But are you also seeing declines in enrollment in maybe some of our more affluent schools where families are opting for private school, or pre-K families are finding other in-person options? Are you seeing any noticeable numbers there?
I'll just repeat the question. Harry is asking whether we're seeing declines in enrollment in affluent schools where parents may be making different choices based on the virtual posture. And the answer is no. We are seeing declines in enrollment in our youngest grades. So, for example, in pre-K, we've got enrollment lags where I think some families may be making a decision that rather than have their youngest children engage in virtual, they'll do something with them differently at home.
And that's across the board or across the city?
That's across the city, yeah. That's the aggregate number.
And, I've heard from some elementary schools, specifically that computers distributions will start after school starts. I know you have said you can give every kid who needs a laptop. How many kids do you expect to be able to log on the first day of school? I mean, percentage-wise, or...
So I can speak directly for DCPS. The expectation is that all of our device distribution begins and ends prior to the start of school. We do have some of our smaller elementary schools that start later in the process because they have a smaller number of devices to distribute. But we will have distribution at every school prior to the start of the school year.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Farabee, there may be some mischief in terms of the attendance, and I want to follow up on what Tom was talking about, you have some students in the district who may not have stable home situations and who may not value education as much as they should, so they may decide at any given time that they're just not going to log in today or in some days. Do you have any mechanisms in order to address that?
So what you're describing, we experience in in-person structure as well when students are expected to be in our buildings, and so we will continue to reach out to families. We have seen whether students are learning at home, learning in school, is regular communication between a caring adult in the school and the family is the best way to monitor attendance. And also schools have targeted approaches for students who have a history of poor attendance. And we see that in some students that gradually over time their attendance may lag, and we have targeted efforts for those students and families to ensure that they're off to a great start. And like I said earlier, we'll continue to monitor attendance on a daily basis.
Can I also just add on this point, because it's come up a couple times now. It's very important to us that families really understand that school is in session in Washington, D.C. And we have worked for months with the State Superintendent's Office to ensure that we can track in a very robust way at all of our public schools, ECPS and public charter schools, whether or not students are engaged. And this happens in two ways. Technically, we know that attendance will be taken every single day by every single LEA. In addition to that, we have required in all schools' virtual learning plans that they share with us how they will keep engaged with all their students and all their families. So we understand that they are doing lots of outreach, as the Chancellor is describing. We are tracking this, and all of our normal systems in terms of truancy, CFSA referrals, and all of those things to support families and help our system remain in place this fall.
Okay, yes, last question.
Just another quick follow-up question about the march in Washington. Have you been in contact with any of the organizers for that march?
We've talked about this on several occasions, yes.
Okay. And just lastly about again about the restaurants. Do you think people should be fearful when they go out to eat?
No.
How should they feel?
I can just tell you about experiences that I've seen throughout the pandemic, that DC residents are supporting local businesses, getting some entertainment and distraction for themselves, and helping to keep people employed by supporting our local restaurants. They're doing it with takeout and delivery. In fact, our restaurant week focus has been on how families can enjoy our local restaurants by having meals delivered or picking them up. They're doing it mostly in outside dining, and they're doing it in limited inside dining. And I would venture to say that the vast majority of those experiences have been 100% positive. And I also don't think that DC residents would be bullied out of living their everyday lives.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor, the Republican convention is going on. There are some events that happen here in the city.
Yes.
I guess there's going to be fireworks Thursday. We had camera crews that noticed they were putting up 10-foot fences at 15th and Pennsylvania, I guess near the Treasury and White House. Any reaction to the stuff that's going on?
It is certainly an unusual set of circumstances, Sam. I think we weren't expecting to have any convention activities up until a few weeks ago when we learned that they would. When we have big events, we spend many, many months planning them with federal partners so that people will be safe in attending those events, and we can plan as best we can for any and all circumstances. So this is quite unusual. They have the ticketed events, I assume the event last night at the White House, and there's going to be another event at the White House on Thursday, pose the most concerns for us. The fireworks, not so much, because, We've supported the fireworks display for many, many years. We still continue to urge people to not go to places where they cannot assure their own social distance from others.
You said the event on Thursday raised some concern. What are the concerns?
That there's, there is going to be a seated event, so there will be a gathering of people. And I just think that anytime you have something at the White House, it could attract counter attention.
Mayor, you were part of the Democratic convention. Are you watching any of the Republican convention?
Yes, I am.
Any thoughts on what you've seen so far?
Well, since they're largely political, Tom, I'm going to stay away from those tonight. The thing that I will say that has been unusual for us is that these buildings, our buildings, the people's buildings, are being used for partisan purposes. And to draw a local analogy, it would be like me going into the John Wilson building, going into the council chamber, going on the steps of the John Wilson building and announcing my reelection or delivering a speech for my campaign or something. So it's just very foreign to us because that's how we revere public spaces, to see those buildings used in that